Part 1. Induction. Close your eyes. Imagine a path through the mountains, ancient, quiet, dappled with light. The smell of pine and earth and something sweet coming from somewhere you cannot quite identify, and somewhere ahead, the sound of something rolling, small and round and unhurried, bouncing gently down the path. This is a story about what happens when you follow the unexpected, when something slips from your hand, and instead of chasing it back, you let it lead you somewhere new. Let the story carry you. Part 2. The Old Man and His Lunch. Long, long ago, in a village at the foot of Green Mountains, there lived an old man. He was a woodcutter. Every morning, before the sun was fully up, he would rise, eat a small breakfast, and pack his lunch. His lunch was always the same: rice balls, omusubi. His wife made them every morning. She packed them carefully in a cloth, tied the corners, and handed them to him at the door. "Be careful on the mountain paths," she always said. "I will," he always replied. They had said these same words to each other every morning for more years than either of them could count. And somehow, every time, the words still meant something. The old man loved his rice balls, not in a dramatic way, in the quiet way that you love something that has been part of every ordinary day for a very long time. The weight of them in his hand, the smell of the rice, the particular way his wife folded the cloth. He walked into the mountains. The path wound upward through pine forest, past mossy rocks, beside a small stream that caught the morning light. He worked all morning, cutting and stacking and carrying, the good, honest work of someone who has done it so long that the body knows what to do without the mind having to think about it. At midday, he sat on a mossy rock, unwrapped his cloth, and took out his rice balls. He held the first one in both hands. He looked at it for a moment. He smiled. Then, just as he was about to take a bite, it slipped. Part 3. The Rolling. It happened very suddenly. One moment the rice ball was in his hands. The next, it had bounced off his knee, hit the ground, and was rolling. He reached for it, missed. It rolled faster than a rice ball had any right to roll, down the slope, through the grass, and disappeared into a hole at the base of an old pine tree. The old man looked at the hole. It was not a large hole, just big enough for a rice ball. Dark inside, cool smelling, the smell of deep earth. He leaned close and listened, and from deep inside the hole, he heard something singing, high and clear and distant, like music heard through water, a cheerful song, in voices he didn't recognize, celebrating something. He couldn't make out the words, but the feeling of the song was unmistakable. Joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. He listened for a long moment. Then, almost without deciding to, he took out his second rice ball. He held it over the hole. He let it go. It rolled in, and disappeared, and from below the singing grew louder, more joyful, as if his gift had been received with great delight. The old man sat back on his heels. He looked at his one remaining rice ball. He looked at the hole. He thought, I am an old man. I am not hungry enough for 3 rice balls anyway. He dropped the last one in. The singing became jubilant, a sound like a celebration breaking out, and then, before he quite knew what was happening, the ground seemed to tilt, and the old man himself slipped and tumbled into the hole. Part 4. The Underground World. He expected darkness. He expected cold earth and the smell of roots and perhaps a great deal of embarrassment. Instead, he found light, soft golden light coming from everywhere and nowhere, illuminating a world that had no business being underground at all. He was in a valley inside the earth. Rolling green hills, a stream running through it, trees he didn't recognize, bearing fruit in colors he had no names for, and everywhere, mice. Hundreds of them, going about their business with the cheerful efficiency of a well-run village. Some were carrying things, some were building, some were cooking over small fires, some were simply sitting, talking, laughing. They were the size of, well, mice. But they moved with a purposefulness, a dignity that made their size seem entirely beside the point. One of them noticed him. It stopped. It looked up at him. Its whiskers twitched. Then it bowed deeply and said, "Welcome, honored guest. We have been waiting for you." The old man blinked. "You have?" "Of course," said the mouse. "You gave us 3 rice balls. 3, when most people barely give us 1. Please, come and eat with us. Let us show you our hospitality." Part 5. The Feast. They fed him. A meal that he would spend the rest of his life trying to describe and never quite managing to. Not because the food was strange. Actually, most of it was familiar. Rice, pickled vegetables, soup with mushrooms and tofu and simple things, but everything tasted more purely itself than it ever had above ground. The rice tasted perfectly of rice. The soup tasted of warmth and care and the particular pleasure of eating something made for you by someone who wanted you to enjoy it. He ate slowly. The mice sat around him, watching with evident pleasure, refilling his bowl before he had quite finished it. They talked, or tried to. The old man's mouse was somewhat rusty, but they managed. He learned that they had lived here for generations, that this valley had been beneath the mountain forever, that they rarely had visitors from above, and when they did, the visitors were always people who had let something go without holding on too tightly. "The rice balls," he said. "You could tell something about me from the rice balls?" The mouse who had first greeted him tilted its head. "You didn't chase the first one," it said. "You watched it go, and then you gave us the others. Not because you thought you'd get something back just because we seem to want them." The old man thought about this. "I suppose I did," he said. The mouse nodded. "Those are the ones we invite in," it said simply. Part 6. The Gift. When the meal was finished, when the old man had drunk his third cup of the mouse-brewed tea that tasted faintly of something he associated with clear autumn mornings, the chief mouse brought out a box. It was a beautiful box, lacquered wood, painted with tiny scenes that seemed to move when you looked at them sideways. "For you," the chief mouse said, "for the rice balls, and for not holding on." The old man took the box. It was heavier than it looked. "Thank you," he said. "You didn't have to." "We know," said the chief mouse, and smiled, in the particular way mice smile, which involves the whiskers more than the mouth. They led him back to the hole. He climbed out, blinking in the afternoon light, the lacquered box tucked under his arm. The hole was just a hole. No singing now. Just the sound of the mountain, and the wind in the pines, and a woodpecker somewhere in the distance. He walked home. Part 7. Opening the Box. His wife was at the door when he came up the path. She looked at his face, then at the box, then back at his face. "What happened?" she said. He told her. She listened without interrupting. This was one of the things he loved most about her. She listened as if everything he said was worth hearing. When he finished, she looked at the box. "Should we open it?" she said. "I think so," he said. They opened it together, sitting at the table, his hands on one side of the lid and hers on the other. Inside, gold. Not a great fortune, but more than they had ever held at once. Enough to be comfortable for the rest of their lives. Enough to repair the roof properly. Enough to help the neighbors when the harvest was bad. Enough. They sat and looked at it for a while. "Mice," his wife said finally. "Underground mice," he confirmed. She nodded slowly. "Well," she said, "we should make them more rice balls sometime." Part 8. The Neighbor. There was a man in the next house. He had heard about the rice balls and the underground world and the box of gold. He was not a bad man exactly, but he was a man who had spent most of his life feeling that other people got more than their share, and he was tired of it. He packed his lunch, rice balls, more rice balls than he had ever brought before, and walked up the mountain to find the old pine tree. He found the hole. He dropped in one rice ball, listened for the singing, heard it, dropped in another, louder, another, louder still. He had brought 10 rice balls. He dropped in all 10. And then, without waiting to be invited, he jumped in himself. Part 9. What the Neighbor Found. The valley was the same. The light, the green hills, the strange colored trees, the mice going about their business. But when they saw him, something was different. They didn't stop. They didn't bow. They looked at him briefly and went back to what they were doing. He stood in the middle of the valley, waiting. Finally, a small mouse crossed his path. "Excuse me," the neighbor said. "I gave you 10 rice balls. Where is my feast? Where is my box of gold?" The mouse stopped. It looked up at him. "You gave us 10 rice balls, sure," it said. "Yes," said the neighbor. "Why?" said the mouse. The neighbor opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Because the old man got gold," he said finally. The mouse's whiskers twitched. "Ah," it said. It was not an unkind sound, but it was a very knowing sound. "We appreciate the rice," the mouse said. "We do. But the box isn't for rice balls. The box is for letting go." The neighbor frowned. "What does that mean?" But the mouse had already moved on. He stood in the valley for a long time. The mice moved around him, cheerful, busy, not unkind, just not particularly interested. Eventually, they helped him find the hole. They were polite about it. He climbed out into the afternoon. No box, just the long walk home. And something small and uncomfortable that had started somewhere in his chest. Not anger, not exactly. More like the beginning of a question he hadn't thought to ask himself before. Part 10. What Remained. The neighbor went home. He sat for a long time at his table. He thought about what the mouse had said, about letting go, about the rice balls, about why he had brought 10 of them. He thought about the old man who had dropped his lunch by accident and then just let the rest of it go, not thinking about what he'd get back, just giving because giving felt right in that moment. He thought, "I have never done that, not once. Everything I've given, I've counted. Everything I've let go, I've regretted." It wasn't a comfortable thought, but it was, he realized, a useful one. He looked out the window at the mountain, at the path that wound up through the pines. He thought, maybe tomorrow I'll pack my lunch, just 1 rice ball, and walk up there and sit on that mossy rock and eat it without planning anything. Just be there and see what happens. Part 11. The Old Man and His Wife. The old man and his wife lived well. They repaired the roof. They helped the neighbors when the harvest was bad. They bought a good warm coat for the winter. But the thing the old man remembered most, the thing he told his grandchildren when they asked him about the underground valley, was not the gold. It was the tea. That mouse-brewed tea that tasted of clear autumn mornings, and the singing coming up through the earth, that pure, uncomplicated joy. They were happy, he would say, just genuinely happy underground in the dark with their rice and their tea and their lives. Happy. His grandchildren would think about this. "Why were they happy?" one of them asked once. The old man thought about it for a while. "I think," he said slowly, "because they didn't need anything to be different from what it was." He looked out the window at the mountain. "That's harder than it sounds," he said. Part 12. Outrow. The story is over now, but somewhere, beneath a mountain, there is a valley, lit with soft golden light, where mice go about their lives with cheerful efficiency, and the tea tastes of autumn mornings, and the singing rises up through the earth, joyful and clear, celebrating the small gifts that fall their way. Sleep now. Let the earth hold you. Let the singing carry you down